So in this video, you're going to watch how I built this immaculate coffee table design, kaleidoscope on the top and the X-shaped legs. I've already sold it, but I'll be making more. Here's a video of it because I sold it already and I don't have it with me. Yeah. So just a quick summary. The first part's going to be finding the woods and cutting the lengths. Second part's going to be cutting into strips and then gluing up into a big board. The third part's going to be cutting the strips again and then randomizing it again. The fourth part's going to be gluing it up again, cutting strips but at a 30 degrees angle and adding some more random strips. Fifth part's going to be cutting horizontally through the design. And then the sixth part's going to be gluing it up in some weird circle. Seventh part is going to be cutting it into a circle. And then the eighth part is going to be the legs. And the ninth part is the finish. New to my channel, check out some of my other videos and enjoy the video. So to start the project, I gathered all sorts of different types of woods, cut them all up into the same length. You can see me cutting the pine here with the circ saw because it was too thick for my table saw. So now in this video, I'm just chopping up all different sorts of woods: pine, marabou, Tasmanian oak, different pine, FC structural wood, red gum. And if you notice from the video, I'm cutting them all at the same height so I can glue them up into a big board filled with strips for the next part. So the redwood was actually very difficult to chop up, but chopped up a lot of it and had to run it through the table saw twice. Next you'll see me cutting up the pine. I did the same thing, run it through the table saw twice, but I'm glad that I used the pine and the redwood because they look really good in the final product. And this is what we're left with. All these mini strips and 6 different types of wood getting ready to be glued up. I then glued up 4 or 5 pairs together and clamped them each time. Then I took each of these pairs over the table saw, ran them through the table saw to cut them at 90 degrees so they were squared off perfectly. I then cut these guys in half and further randomizing it, so when I glued it up into the big board, the design looked crazy. So here I am, finally gluing up all the strips into a big board, but the problem is they're all at 90 degrees. If we want to get that cool kaleidoscope design, we're going to have to cut it at a 30 degrees angle, and that'll be the next step. I then sanded it and got ready to cut through the board again, bringing us to step 4, I think. All right, now that the glue's dried and we've got it up into a big board, we're making 30-degree cuts long ways. And if you want to add a bit of spice and a bit of coolness into the kaleidoscope design, you've got to add some plain strips into the design to make it look cool. So I followed the same process, step 2, step 3, cut them up, glued them up. And then this one was really hard to glue up and it took a long time because at the 30 degrees angle, things don't glue up just as nice. But yeah, took a long while, but we got through the whole glue up here and got to say, the end grain was looking really nice. So I glued it up and then waited for the glue to dry, squared off the edges and sanded it so that it looked really nice. So I wanted to run it through my planer, but I realized my planer isn't as thick as the board was, so I used my pelvis to cut this massive board in half. So then finally I could run both these pieces, both these mini boards through the planer a couple of times. And then finally I get a nice look of the end grain design. So step 5, cutting horizontally through the design. This part is always the funnest and the most fulfilling. So we cut through the design for both of the big boards. Then I was left with these mini pieces that were cut from the end grain. Then it was time to somehow put these pieces into a circle and eventually make it look neat. I'd never done this before, so a lot of this was trial and error. So to start off by gluing it up into a circle, I had to first try to glue it up into a square and then figure it out from there. And these cuts here are just me squaring these things to 90 so I could glue it up more. So I glue it up to this square right here, if that makes any sense. So basically I had 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 mini squares and I glued them up into one big square, kind of square, circle square, yeah. I turn this guy into a circle, let's go. So I probably didn't need to add this part to the video, but I wanted to see, or show you guys how I failed at making a circle. So first thing I did was I got the circle saw and I tried to slowly remove piece by piece to slowly make it look more like a circle. And then I got to the bandsaw and this was just unbelievably awkward and did not turn out very well. But it did look more like a circle. But like the genius I am, I went over to YouTube, Googled some ways to make a circle out with a table saw and a jig, and this is exactly how I did it, making it perfect circle. Even after all the mistakes I made and everything that's gone wrong, it started to actually look pretty good. And all that was left now was a sand and a varnish. So now it's actually starting to look really nice, and this last few sandings here is 800 grit, and I was getting ready to varnish the whole board, which is the top of the coffee table. And look how sexy that is. The board is nice and varnished and ready for the legs to be built. So for the legs, I decided to use the redwood to match the redwood used in the top of the design. I cut them 40 by 40 millimeter pieces on the table saw, and I cut 3 legs to create that X-shaped leg design. And then once all 3 were cut, nice and ready to go, they didn't look that nice, so I decided to chuck them through the planer to get that red color and make sure that they were perfectly 90. So then I planed them, made some measurements, and then chucked them onto the table saw. The table saw was at half the height of the thickness of the leg. So I proceeded to do this with all 3 of the legs. You get a nice little camera angle here, see what I'm doing right now. And then once all of those are done, I got ready to sand it and then finally varnish and glue it. So once the sanding was done, I glued the 3 legs up all together, put them in an X-shaped design, clamped them, and then once the glue was dry, I got the drill piece, drilled some holes, and screwed some holes in there to secure the hold of the X-shaped legs. But because of the screwing and the glue marks, it needed some further sanding and made sure everything looked nice. And then once it did, chucked the varnish out, varnished the legs, chucked the top on, and that is the end of the tutorial of this video. So I was super proud of this design and how it worked out, how it turned out. Here's some beautiful footage of the design right now. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to this video. and I will leave you with the rest of the footage of this one-of-a-kind coffee table created by me.
Video. Thank you for that. I've sold this one already and I'm going to be making more, so hit me up if you want one. And I'm thinking about making different designs as well, which is cool. Circular coffee table. Check out some videos where I make this square coffee table, and I don't really have much else to say, but yeah.